Martin, I'm here to do another tutorial on Django CMS. This time the topic is going to be around extending the page and title models. The idea for doing this screencast came up when we had a couple questions in the IRC channel recently about page and title models. In particular, one of the questions asked was, what is the difference between a page and title model? And I want to cover that off first before we get into it because it's important that people understand when to use one and when to use the other. So in order to explore that, I want to look at this model, this ER diagram of sorts of the CMS models. Now this is just showing the table fields and their relationships. It doesn't show the methods or the other members of the models, but it is still useful nonetheless. And if you want to look at this in more detail, I realize it might be a little small on your screen. I have placed it, out there for everybody to consume at this URL here. It's actually on scribd as a PDF, and I don't know if that URL is going to change from every time I update it. So, because I don't use scribd that much. So I've created the short link here, and if the URL does change when I post a new version, then I'll update this short link to reflect the new URL. So I'd recommend that you always use this. And then because I was already creating a short link, I went ahead and created one for the Django CMS virtual user group community on Google+, and you can get to that from just bit.ly/CMS community. So share that with your friends and neighbors and sign up at the virtual user group at Google+. Anyway, so we want to look at this diagram so we can understand the difference between a page extension and a title extension. So to best understand that, it's best to look at what a page is versus a title. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here because I think it'll be easier to see these two tables. So there's lots of things that connect to a page throughout this diagram, but only nothing connects to title, and in fact title only has one connection outside of connecting to itself, and that is a connection to page. So what is title? Title is an extension of page which allows it to put all of its language dependent fields in a separate place, right? So a single page construct might have multiple title constructs depending on how many languages for that particular page you might have. So if you have a multi-language site, let's say you have English and Spanish, all of the Spanish fields will be on a separate table instance for title from the English instance of title. So you can see that the page doesn't even have its own title, right? That would be stored in the app name title model, and that would be stored alongside the language that particular title is written in. So at a glance, you can see all the different things that are language dependent in a given page. So the title, of course, the page title, which is an override that you can set in the advanced settings. There's the menu title. Again, that's an override. The meta description, and of course the slug, and relatedly the path. And then of course we have the information about when it was last modified or created, and also whether it's in a published state or a draft state. And of course that information is stored here because you could be editing the Spanish version of your page, but the English version could be live and public for everybody else to see. So it makes sense that it would be stored separately. So anyway, I hope that clears it up. A page is the core page construct, and it's where you're going to have your relationship to all the placeholders via a many table. So all your content will kind of be stored and organized in the page, but the language-specific aspects of the page construct itself will be stored in the title. So when you're thinking about extensions, you have to think, do I want to create a language-dependent extension to my page? And if the answer is yes, then you probably want to create a title extension. If the answer is no, then you could probably just go ahead and create a page extension. And I find that that's easier to do, And that's what we're going to do in this video here. And to be honest, I actually have yet to see a case where I needed to create a title extension. I've always, found that a page extension was what I was looking for. So anyway, we're going to get into the coding now, but I hope that helps people understand. If this diagram is a little bit daunting and you want to study it a little bit more, again, you can find it up here. And of course, this is the link you want to share with your friends and family about how to get involved with Django CMS's virtual user group on Google+. Okay, let's get to the code. All right, so we're actually going to create this code from scratch. I don't have it copy and pastable from someplace else. And the reason for that is because we have all the code that we pretty much need already in the docs at the Django CMS docs. So let's start there. So the first thing you want to do is, of course, read all the content here. But the first thing you want to do is you want to create our model file, which is going to store our model changes. Now, I've copied that code. It's in my clipboard. Now, where do I paste it? I create a folder, an application in my project called CMS extensions, and that's typically where I do things like this. And let me go ahead and paste this in here while I still have it on my mind. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is create the init.py, then models.py, paste. All right, and I'm going to call this color extension, because instead of doing a icon, we're going to create a new color just to show a different example and something that's simple and straightforward. The field that we want to add to our page, if you will, is going to be just called color, and it's going to be a models.care field, and it'll be default equals none, help text equals please provide an HTML color code, and max length equals 8. That should do it. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, so now that I've got this pasted in there, two things. I usually create my page extensions in a separate app, largely because it wouldn't be appropriate to put that page extension in the news or the products or the staff or the gists or the contacts. It kind of stands over and above. It's part of the design of my site, and in this case it is because it's a color thing. It's not really specific to one of the primary content applications. But there's another good reason for that, for doing this way, and that is we recently had somebody in the IRC channel who was having trouble with their page extension, and it was because they were trying to add the page extension in the same models.py file where they were overriding the user model, and there was a conflict and it created an issue for them. So the solution was to move the page extension into a different file, and I think it probably makes sense to put it into a kind of a catch-all app. And so anyway, a lot of my projects will have a CMS extensions app, and it's just where I put stuff like middleware or context processors, which don't have anything to do with a specific app or whatever, kind of a catch-all. So anyway, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put our models.py in that app. Now, the other thing I wanted to explain is what our goal here is, right? So I already started copying and pasting code, and I really wanted to give you guys an idea of what we're trying to do. We're adding a new color field to each page, and we're going to use that color field to paint the background of the page a page-specific color, right? So we could have 100 pages. They could all use the same templates, but we could define a unique color on a per page basis, and that's what page extensions are really good for. Okay, now with that out of the way, we've created the model, and it's going to create basically a single field that we're going to add to our page, if you will. And the next thing we need to do is, and this is mandatory by the way, is we have to create an admin extension, right? So Again, I'm going to copy and paste this code right out of the docs, and I'm going to create a new admin.py, slam that in there, and change it specifically for my color extension rather than my icon extension. Notice we're not using anything but basically a degenerate admin or a default admin, and that's because it's a single field. There's really not a whole lot of need to add any complexity to this. In fact, I suppose what I could do, oh no, I couldn't do that. I was going to say I could probably just do like this. Well, no, it doesn't matter. I have to do it this way because I need to extend page extension admin, and well, I guess probably what I could do is I could probably do that, and that would probably work, getting rid of this altogether. But nonetheless, let's stick to the docs. We need to extend CMS.extensions page extension admin for our admin, and then we need to register the whole thing against the model. So we've done that, easy as pie. All right, the next thing we need to do, okay, so just to give a bigger picture, so we need to create an admin hook into our model so that we could, in theory, we would be able to edit our extension in the admin, but it will not work. And the reason is explained nicely in these docs, but just to give a summary, basically there's going to be a relationship between the core object, in this case the page, and our extension, but you won't be able to manage that relationship in the admin. So what that means is you will see all of your color models in the admin, but you won't be able to assign them to pages. So you might be thinking to yourself, if we can't use the admin, why do we need to create it? And the simple answer is that what we're going to do instead is we're going to use the CMS toolbar down here, right? And I'm going to go ahead and copy this while I'm here. So again, I'm going to copy this right out of the documentation. And in order to use the toolbar, we need to trigger the, by using the toolbar, we'll trigger an admin form to pop up in a dialog, which allows you to make the edits. And that form will contain, even though you won't be able to see it, it will contain the relationship to the page. And so that's why we need to create the admin so that we'll have those change and add forms available to us, but you won't really be able to use them in the Django admin, but you will be able to use those forms in the CMS toolbar. So let's continue. So we need to create a CMS toolbar.py file. This is where we create our toolbars. And in this case, we're going to call it icon extension toolbar, but we're going to actually call it color extension toolbar. So I'm going to find all instances of icon extension and change it to color extension in this case. And we do have to make a couple of other changes. So what are those other changes? We need to change, well, this says icon. We can go ahead and change that. Although this is just a variable name, it won't affect anything, but I think it's clearer if we go ahead and change it. Now these are the things we have to change. So a moment ago I told you about these admin forms, the change form and the add form, that we need to access from the toolbar in order to make the extension editable. And this is where you connect your toolbar to those forms. So we need to make sure that we're using the right application name, extensions, and model name. So in this case, the model name is color extension, lowercase, and the application is CMS extensions, plural, and it's matching this up here. And now this is how we will look up the change form and the add form in the admin, so that we can create those dialogues so that you can manage this extension. So we've changed those. Let's see if there's anything else we need to change. All right, so there's one more thing. It's not mandatory, but we'll want to. We don't want to call this page icon now. We want to call it page color. And I think that's all the changes we need to make. Okay, so we've now created a toolbar extension, if you will. We've created our models and our admin to all match. We've copied almost all of the code directly out of the doc, so it was super easy. and we've made the appropriate changes to make sure that our field is not an icon, or not an image, but a color. Now, just to be clear, a page extension or a title extension is not limited to a single field. It could be any number of fields that you define. But in this simple example, we're using a simple single field. Okay, so let's install this. So we now have created our separate little app with all the required bits, but now we need to install it into our application. So the first thing we're going to do is go to Settings, and we're going to add our new app. So let's add that, project.apps.cms extensions. Alrighty, and then let's go ahead and use the, let's go ahead and do a schema migration. We have to now tell, conform the database to what we want. So let's do a schema migration, CMS extensions. And then this is the initial one, so we'll just give it initial. Now it's created our extension and created our migration for us, so let's go ahead and apply it. Alrighty. Now let's run it and see if it took. Alright. So first thing, let me just click around. You'll see that this is the same application where we left off in the previous video. We had just created an internationalized product gallery, and I'm not going to go into the details of that. If you're interested in doing that, then definitely check out the other video. But we do have a number of pages here which are all using the same set of templates with different content. Many of these have a left sidebar. The front page has no sidebar, so we're using definitely different templates. We have a couple different ones. But now what we've added, because we've just done the work to do so, is we've added this new menu item down here called page color. And you'll remember that's what we defined the color to be the menu item to be down here, page color. We could give it any name we want. We chose page color because it makes sense. And if we invoke that, we now get our admin form. Now you'll remember I was explaining that the admin forms are kind of useless in the normal admin because there's no way to relate that particular thing to the page. Well, in this case, it will be related because there's the relationship is managed behind the scenes, but the important thing is you now have an admin form for managing your color. So I'm going to give this particular page, the product gallery, I'm going to give it a very faint blue tint. So we're going to do EE, and then I'll do FF. Right, so that should be a faint blue background. And now we can't see anything, of course, because we didn't actually make a change to our templates to use that information, but we now have that assigned. And if I were to go to and invoke that thing again, you'll see that it did capture it. So here it is. It's the same value that we left it. And if I go to a different page, we can go to page color, and we can see that there is no value for that particular page. And that just kind of proves that the value stored under page color is on a per page basis. And I'm going to give the home page, I'm going to give that a faint pinkish color. By the way, I don't recommend you actually do this in a real project unless you really know how to design things properly. Anyway, so let's use this information. So we have now an extra field on our page. How do we use it? Well, the way we use it is in this case, we will go to our templates, and I'm going to use the base template. All my other templates inherit from this. And this is a quick and dirty demo, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a style directly to the HTML tag of the template. And I'm basically going to say get me the current, from the request object, get me the current page, then get me the get me the color extension for the page, and then get me the color. Now this is explained in the docs about this part right here. Obviously this part here is pretty standard, it's always there, And once you have the page object, then you can access different properties off of it. One of the magic bits about creating a page or title extension is that it automatically assigns the name of your model to as the foreign key name, if you will, the related name, from the page to your custom model, your extension, and then of course here's the field name. So by using this string here, this property tag in my template, and accessing this property of the page, I should be able to get a hold of that color, which is a standard HTML color, and apply it as a style. Now I better use proper CSS, so I'm going to call this background. That should do it. I'll go ahead and put a semicolon at the end just to be extra pedantic. Alright, let's try it. I think that's going to work, but let's give it a whirl. So I'm going to refresh my page, and lo and behold, we now have a pink background for our home page. And if you remember correctly, we set a bluish color for the product gallery. So if I click on that, will I get a blue background? Indeed I do. So you can see that the page extensions are working, and we are accessing them correctly into the templates. So I hope this answers a few questions that you might have. So one of them was, what's the difference between excuse me, what's the difference between a page and a title extension? And you remember that we talked about the models in the database, and the way that the title stores the language specific aspects of a page. So that should help you understand when I would use a page extension versus when would I use a title extension. And to make it even simpler, if the extension you want to add is going to be a language specific thing, then you're probably going to want to do it in the title extension, otherwise the page extension. And 99% of the time you're going to use a page extension. Then you'll have seen that we have walked through the process of creating the necessary bits to do that. In particular, we start with the model of our extensions. We add a simple admin, which you must do because otherwise your toolbar will have nothing to display. But just because you're creating the admin doesn't mean you're really going to try to manage this in the admin. And just to make that point even clearer, I'm going to go to the CMS extensions app in my normal Django admin, and then I'm going to go to color extensions, which is my new model, and you'll see I do have a couple of objects, and if I click on one of them, lo and behold, there is my pinkish color that I put on the main page. But you'll see there's no way to attach that to the main page, right? So it's not really all that useful here. And just for grins, I want to go and see if there is anything on the page itself. I don't think there will be, but let's check. So if I go into the page, yeah, there's no extra field here, right? So just to make that clear, so there's no way to use the normal admin to manage your page and title extensions. You have to use the toolbar. So so that's what we've done. We've created then a toolbar extension to allow you to manage those things. Now this looks a little bit, of the 3 files that we've created, this is a little beefier, and in part that's because we have permissions that were, if you've turned on permissions in your settings, then this little stanza of code here will allow you to honor those permissions that you set. So you can, lock some users out of creating page extensions and allow others to do so. And it's pretty easy to follow along if you look at the code. So anyway, I hope this helps you, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this short because it's almost 24, it's just after 24 minutes long now. So enjoy. Hope this helps you. Bye-bye.